BLUF Gaming here with a quick tutorial on how to get into the factory in SCUM, the new early access game on Steam. And once you're in the factory, how to get around to where most of the loot is without getting shot by the sentries or killed by any of the puppets. If you don't know where the factory is, just look in sector B1 in the northern central portion. You can see my blue triangle indicating where I am and what I'm facing. I am on the southwestern wall of the factory, and in that area there's only one entrance inside, a very large door on the wall. Be sure to check around for puppets first. There are quite often 3 or 4 of them hanging outside the wall, but it looks like today I might have been a bit lucky as I don't see any outside. It doesn't mean there won't be some inside, however, so be sure that you open the doors, back off, and deal with the puppets before trying to go in. You don't want to have to deal with puppets and sentries at the same time. I've come armed with just a few wooden spears, which should be sufficient. I don't see any right now, however, just in case, I'm going to throw a potato just to see if any of those puppets out there are hungry and ready to come see what's around. I hear that both sentries are very nearby. I'm going to wait for them to turn around so the potato doesn't attract them and hopefully only attracts puppets. Doesn't look like the sound attracted anyone. You don't want to go in until you're sure there aren't any sentries nearby. The buildings on the left and right are pretty much identical, but they each have an entrance on their southeastern corner, which means you want to turn left to go to that building. It has the closest entrance. Here's our entrance. Go in, and just in case a puppet sees you, close the door behind. We're going to climb to the roof, first up the stairs and then up a ladder. If you're like me and you're carrying 3 spears, you're probably going to lose one whenever you're going up the ladder because you have no place to put it. We're trying to get into this large building. That's where most of the loot is. There are also some more crates on the several levels inside this large building here, but most of the loot is on the factory floor in this large portion here. I prefer to enter in this bridge over here, so what we're going to do is take this ladder down and then cross over to the next building. As always, when you're traveling in this area, make sure you're doing so when there aren't any sentries nearby to see you. It's often easier to hear where they are than it is to see where they are. This is the most dangerous part, in my opinion. You want to make sure that this particular sentry down here is not going to see you climbing those steps, because once you are aggroed by a sentry, your best defense is to zigzag left and right, but on these steps that is not an option. Okay, he's on his way out, so once he makes this turn up here, we're going to be on our way up. Once you get in this hallway, be sure to crouch so you're not easily spotted by the 2 sentries, one on this side and the other on this side, and you can begin looting all the good gear. Up these steps, you'll find a bit more gear, but most of it is going to be down there on the factory floor. You will have to be stealthy while you're down there, because mechs can see you through those large doors, and there are puppets in the area. If you're going to attack the puppets, try to kill them stealthily using spears. If you're using a weapon, you could likely aggro anywhere from 3 to as many as 10 just from firing a gunshot. Of course, if you've already found weapons and ammos upstairs, 10 puppets may not be an issue for you. Once you're done looting, getting out is just as easy as getting in, and done very much in the same way, except in reverse. And we're out. We're out, and that's your bottom line up front. If you'd like to see more detail about where all the loot is and what you can expect, just stick around for the rest of the details. Thanks for sticking around. If you're new to BLUF Gaming, BLUF stands for bottom line up front. I get all the important parts of the tutorial and I put it right up front so you can get the core information you need and get back to your game as fast as possible. For those of you who like to see more detail, just stick around to this point after the intro and I start from beginning to end so you can see exactly how we do everything. In this tutorial, we're breaching into the factory using virtually no equipment at all and going to come out loaded to the teeth with guns and ammo. If you don't know where the factory is, just look on your map in the northern portion of sector B1. You can see where my blue triangle is there, and I am on the southwestern wall of the factory. You may have to defeat 2 or 3 puppets in this area before you're able to access that door, but you can easily do so with wooden spears like I have. A single headshot is all it takes to take out a puppet, and they don't make any noise at your location, so throwing one won't attract the attention of the puppets to you, but rather to wherever the spear lands. There's a chance there could be more puppets on the other side of this door, so what we're going to do is open the door, toss in something to attract their attention, and then if it's clear, we'll be able to go through once the sentries have moved, and if any puppets are attracted to where we threw the rock, we'll have a target ready. Make sure you don't hear any sentries right at the moment, or at least none nearby before you open the door. And then once you open it, back off so you don't get spotted. Again, wait until you can hear that there aren't any sentries near the door so that when you throw your decoy, you're attracting any puppets, not any sentries. Doesn't look like we got anyone, so let's make our approach. There are virtually identical buildings on the left and the right of this entrance. Each of them has an entrance in the southeastern corner on the east-facing wall, so we'll be entering the one on the left since we won't have to run all the way down the face of the building to get there. You're not exposed very long to the sentries, but it's always a good idea to not aggro them even if they don't get a chance to shoot at you, because once a sentry is aggroed, its lights turn from white to red and then it will more quickly shoot the next time it spots you. I could be wrong, but it sounds clear, so I'm going to make a run for it. Just make your immediate left right here, go in, and I recommend shutting the door behind you just in case a puppet saw you. From here we'll be climbing to the roof of the building. You could loot this building if you wanted, but the loot is not nearly as good here as it will be in the area where we're going. There's a ladder here, so if you're geared like I am, with 3 spears, you're going to have to leave one behind. Just because you're on the roof doesn't mean you can't be spotted, so be sure to move stealthily until you understand where the sentries are and where the danger areas are. The majority of the loot in the factory point of interest is going to be in this large building here. There's a decent amount in a hallway like this, and there's also a decent amount in the upper portions of this building over here. This is a large factory area. It's very open, but it has some small walkways along the wall, and some of those do have a few crates on them that you can loot. Most of the loot, however, is on the factory floor, which is not completely without danger. Unlike a lot of bunkers, you will be in danger at points once you're already inside the factory. It's easier to get access to all this loot if you take this bridge rather than this one. So let's go ahead and head over that way, and luckily we have some rooftop access here. The sentries don't always follow the same path, one game to the next. Sometimes the sentry in this corner over here that we're facing now will come all the way to the road where it tees right there. Other times it won't go past the threshold over on that end, and it will just circle around the southwestern corner. So let's take a look and see what path he takes before we decide to go down this ladder. Okay, he's probably headed back to circle around, so let's go ahead and make our descent here. Sounds like we've been spotted, but I wasn't too concerned about it here since it's a safe area. Now, we will have to be more careful as we go up the ladder because I'm not sure which one it was that saw us. It was likely the one on that end, and he's headed away, so let's continue our trek. Climbing these steps, or coming back down when it's time to escape, in my opinion, is the most dangerous part of this loot run. Let's take a look at the sentry we aggroed over here on the left and see what kind of path it takes before we go up the bridge. You see how his lights are red? That indicates he has been aggroed before. I'm thankful it was him rather than the one that was circling the yard over here, because he has a much harder time shooting us as we're going up these steps. He's turned around, so we know he doesn't come too close. Let's try to time our ascent where this sentry is walking away and the aggroed sentry is out of range. He should do a U-turn here, and then we'll be free and clear for a good amount of time from him. And that guy's pretty far off, so let's make our ascent. Normally if you aggro a sentry, you can zigzag to avoid their fire. However, you don't have that option in those steps, which is why I recommend you're extra careful there. If you never looted a significant point of interest or a bunker before, you may not have seen these types of containers. They often have valuable clothing, armor, and occasionally weapons, magazines, or ammo, so be sure to check all of them. As you see, there are windows on both sides of this hallway, so you do want to be careful and not walk around too openly, as you could easily get shot. These green crates very frequently contain either ammo or weapons. I'm going to skip picking up magazines until I know what weapons I'm going to be using. 9mm ammo, however, I can already use in my pistol. If you're new to the game and you don't know how the weapons work yet, you can only load a single round into the chamber of most weapons until you have a magazine. I don't yet have an M9 magazine, so one shot at a time is all I'll get from these pistols. A notable exception to that rule are the shotguns you quite often find. let's watch this mech here and wait until he's made the circle and is turning right again before we attempt to go this direction. As you can see, we'll be exposed and be going up those stairs, so we want to make sure that he doesn't see us and we don't get shot. Should be time for him to do his U-turn, and we should see him walking away in just a moment. An RIS adapter allows you to connect a scope to certain types of weapons. It will tell you what type of weapon in the name. Just because I like that weapon so much, I'm going to hold on to it. This area kind of loops around, so you can either go this direction or through the other door, and you'll end up back by these stairs by the time you've done looting it. Again, I really like the SVD, so I'm going to keep this magazine and the ammo that goes in it. While this says RIS adapter for Dragunov, it's talking about the SVD. Perfect. Now that we have a backpack, we can be more free with what we decide to hold on to. And as I said, this whole area loops back around to where we came from, and we'll want to watch the sentry again, just as we did before, so that we can be sure we're descending at a safe time. Now it's time to explore the main factory. You can see you have 5 different levels, the top 4 of which just have these small platforms going around the edge. There is a small amount of ammo on these. You can see on the next one down there's a bit, and I believe also on the second we'll find some more crates. So let's loot those on our way down to the main floor where most of the loot will be. You do have to be careful on the factory floor because many zombies, or rather puppets, can hear you if you were to fire a shot, and it's possible they could walk up onto you as you're looting boxes. Also, when you're on the floor, those large doors which remain open allow one of the sentries to see you if you're not careful. While it looks like there's only one puppet nearby, You'd be surprised how quickly you can be swarmed by them here if you were to fire a weapon. If you do get swarmed by puppets on the factory floor, I recommend coming up the stairs rather than into this room, as there's no way out once you go in. If you're sufficiently armed, this can be a refuge where you can fight your way out of. However, you don't want to have to fight 10 puppets at once if all you have are wooden spears. Let's cross to the other side and see what we find over there. Of all the loot on the factory floor, the most dangerous to loot are these boxes over here. They're out in the center and there's not much cover, so be sure you time it well or that your mech has a favorable route. Well, we have company. Time to run behind cover. Well, I can't say I didn't warn myself. You notice I avoided using my firearm. True, I only had one round, but a headshot would have been a quick end to that combat. However, it would have led to a much larger combat by aggroing other puppets. Finally, a weapon that we can use and get more than one shot with. Well, I've definitely had better runs, but I can't complain with this one. I am leaving with a shotgun with extra ammo to spare. Exiting is done the same way as entering, just in reverse. So let's go ahead and head out. Now's a good time to go down. If we don't rearrange, we're going to lose something when we start climbing. Remember, this is where we got aggro from a sentry earlier. It's still red, so we have to be careful. Looks like he's headed this way. Now we need to watch over our shoulder for the mech that has not been aggroed yet, as he does a U-turn right there and might spot us. Looks like a couple of zombies, or rather a couple of puppets, have decided to join us on the roof. Not a problem for us now, but there are more on the way, so let's go ahead and get indoors. Now on our way out, our main concern is the sentry on the left, since we already know the route of the one on the right doesn't bring him very close. We would have time to evade the one on the right if he were to aggro, so we just need to time the one on the left. As it seems that more puppets have spawned since we last came this way, that's another thing to keep in mind. The mech is headed this way, so we're going to close the door and wait for us to hear him come and then start to go quiet again. Alright, it's time for us to leave. We're going to go out at full speed and fight any puppets we might aggro once we get outside. Lucky for us, it seems like we aggroed no one. In terms of loot, this is a rather light run for what you can expect in the factory. It is easier to go to bunkers, in my opinion, and loot those. You'll get roughly the same amount of loot for less risk. However, it's hard for people to fight their sense of adventure, and I must admit, this place looks a lot cooler than the bunkers once you've done those a few times. I hope this was helpful for you, or at least interesting. Feel free to like, subscribe, or comment and let me know. Of course, you can dislike as well. But if you do that, I'm going to call my dog over to me, tell him I'm about to scratch his belly, and after he flops over on his back, I'm going to change my mind. Thanks for watching Bottom Line Up Front. Hope to see you next time.